Yesterday, thousands of Alabama fans did the same thing. They refreshed the recruiting rankings, looked at Georgia, looked at Tennessee, looked back at Alabama, and quietly reached the same conclusion. Something feels different. Maybe the dynasty really is fading, but what if that reaction is exactly what Kalen DeBoer expected? Because while everyone keeps watching the rankings, Alabama may be playing a game almost nobody can actually see. And the most important move of this recruiting cycle might not have happened publicly at all. Every dynasty dies twice. The first time happens on the field. The second happens inside people's minds. Long before trophies disappear, people stop believing. That may be exactly where Alabama finds itself today. Ever since Nick Saban stepped away, every recruiting update has been treated like evidence. Georgia lands another elite prospect. Headlines explode. Tennessee wins an important battle. Social media celebrates. Ohio State keeps stacking talent. Alabama doesn't dominate the news cycle the way it once did. For many fans, the verdict seems obvious. The machine has slowed down, but machines don't disappear overnight. They change, and sometimes they become harder to recognize. Here's the strange part. The louder Alabama's rivals become, the quieter Kalen DeBoer seems to get. No dramatic promises, no public panic, no desperate recruiting headlines, just calm. That should probably worry people more than excitement ever could. Because confidence without results looks reckless, but confidence backed by information looks very different. The question is, which one are we actually watching? Every fan believes recruiting begins with a commitment graphic on social media. It doesn't. By the time you see that graphic, months of the real story have already happened. Phone calls, family conversations, private visits. Trust built one conversation at a time. None of that appears in a ranking. Yet that's where recruiting is usually won. Suddenly, the scoreboard everyone keeps watching starts looking incomplete. According to recruiting coverage from outlets like On3 and Sports Illustrated, Alabama continues building relationships with several priority targets across the country while slowly adding pieces to its class. Roll Bama Roll recently highlighted another important offensive addition, while recruiting analysts continue pointing toward prospects whose decisions are still developing. Notice something. Almost every headline focuses on what Alabama doesn't have. Very few focus on what Alabama may already have. That's a completely different story. And maybe that's exactly why this recruiting cycle feels so confusing. Because public momentum and private momentum are rarely the same thing. Imagine two coaches. One celebrates every small victory. The other stays completely silent. Which one worries you more? History suggests the quiet one. Kalen DeBoer inherited something almost impossible, not just a football program, an expectation. At Alabama, winning isn't enough. Winning has to look familiar. That's a dangerous standard. Because college football isn't the same game Nick Saban conquered. The transfer portal changed roster construction. Name, image, and likeness changed recruiting conversations. Elite prospects receive national attention earlier than ever. Relationships move faster. Commitments change faster. The old recruiting map no longer exists. So why would anyone expect the new coach to follow the old road? Maybe that's the question Alabama fans should have been asking from the beginning. Not, why isn't DeBoer recruiting like Saban? But, why would he? Then another detail begins to matter. Keelon Russell. Most fans see an elite quarterback. Recruiters see something much larger. Quarterbacks attract receivers. Receivers attract skill players. Momentum attracts momentum. Sometimes one player changes a class. Sometimes one player changes how other players imagine their future. That influence never appears beside a star rating, yet coaches chase it every year. Now think back to the rankings again. Can a ranking measure belief? Can it measure trust? Can it measure a conversation that changed a family's mind during dinner? Of course not. That doesn't mean Alabama is secretly winning every recruiting battle. It doesn't. Recruiting remains unpredictable. Players change their minds. Other schools fight until the final moment. Georgia continues recruiting at an extraordinary level. Ohio State remains one of the country's strongest programs. Tennessee has proven it can beat anyone for the right prospect. Those are facts. But there is another fact that often gets ignored. Recruiting rankings describe today's picture. They do not guarantee tomorrow's ending. Every cycle produces surprises, late commitments, unexpected flips, relationships that quietly outweighed louder headlines. That's why experienced recruiting reporters spend less time reacting and more time waiting. Because they know the middle of the story almost never looks like the end. Maybe that's why DeBoer refuses to panic. Or maybe he knows something the public doesn't. Nobody outside the building can honestly answer that. And that's exactly what makes this fascinating. The uncertainty isn't a weakness, it's the story. Think about the conversation surrounding Alabama today. Fans refresh rankings, analysts debate numbers, rivals celebrate headlines. Meanwhile, inside the football building, none of those reactions change tomorrow's recruiting visit. None of them change another phone call. None of them change another relationship. The work continues whether people believe in it or not. That may be the biggest lesson hidden inside this recruiting cycle. Dynasties rarely disappear because people stop talking about them. They disappear when they stop adapting. And perhaps the quietest thing Kalen DeBoer has done is convince everyone to judge Alabama using yesterday's rules while he recruits for tomorrow's game. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. But one thing is impossible to ignore. The biggest moments of this recruiting class probably won't happen when everyone is watching. They'll happen long before the headlines finally catch up. And if that day comes, many people will believe Alabama suddenly came back, when in reality, the comeback may have started months earlier. We just weren't looking in the right place. So what do you think? Is Kalen DeBoer quietly building Alabama's next great recruiting class? Or are Crimson Tide fans right to be worried? Share your opinion in the comments because this story is still unfolding. Subscribe for more Alabama investigations that go beyond the headlines. And watch the next video, because another recruiting battle could reveal whether this quiet strategy is already changing the future of Alabama football.